It is springtime, 1483. The birds chirp and the spring flowers are in blossom. Two young boys are laying in a meadow. The two boys speak about their father with admiration. Their father and king is a man who has been on the throne for 22 years. He is the 6'4" man, King Edward IV, and he has brought peace to his country. The War of the Roses has not even affected the two young boys. They only know peace. They have heard of the great battles that their father has won, however. The boys' tutor calls over to the boys with a serious look on his face. As the boys wander over quietly, they are confused. When they get to the tutor, they are informed of some distressing news. Their hero-worshipped father, Edward IV, has died. As the tutor comforts the two boys, the eldest boy gazes up with a scared look in his eyes. The tutor knows what the gaze means, and he nods in comfort before saying, "The king is dead. Long live the king." The elder of the two boys has just been elevated from Prince of the Realm to King Edward V for now. Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm of course the Knight of History, and this is part number 4 of the War of the Roses story. A story of bloodshed, family rivalry, and really horrific acts. But today we are going to probably talk about the most horrific and awful act of the War of the Roses. The Princes in the Tower. If you haven't watched part number 1 to part number 3 yet, I suggest going and watching those first. Then more importantly, if you're feeling charitable, please go find the link in the description down below to donate to a charity called Mercy Ships, hospitals helping people out who have nothing. So any donation will help. No big or no small, doesn't matter, go donate if you can. I've also decided to run the Milan Marathon, which I'm currently making a video about, to raise funds for Mercy Ships. So if you can, please go and donate. Also, of course, please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Now, let's get into this. Before we get into this, we have a Donors Wall of Fame and our very first donation from Shireen from Scotland. If you want to get on this wall, and I'm sure that you all do, all you have to do is go donate. Find the link down below. Now let's really get into this. The death of the old King Edward IV led to the last chapter of the War of the Roses. The two young sons that he left behind were aged 12 and 9. The 12-year-old was Edward V, the King of England, and his brother, Richard the Duke of York, the 9-year-old. Naturally, of course, a 12-year-old can't rule a kingdom, so the old king's brother, a person called Richard the Duke of Gloucester, was chosen as a protector on behalf of the young king's rule. The two boys travelled down from Ludlow Castle to London with their uncle, the Earl of Rivers, the brother of their mother, Elizabeth Woodville. The young Edward was now king. He was Edward V, but he was still 12 years old and he needed protecting. They made their way down to the countryside with 2,000 troops. Their father's brother, their other uncle, Richard the Duke of Gloucester, was named as their protector and now regent of the country. And he went to go meet these two boys on their way down from Ludlow to London. And he came with 600 troops. But when he eventually met this convoy, Edward V wasn't there. In fact, he had been sent further south down to a town called Stony Stratford. Confused as to why the king was not there, Richard the Duke of Gloucester had the Earl of Rivers, the boy's uncle, and all his associates arrested, as they felt there may be a conspiracy afoot. After the Earl of Rivers was arrested, Richard and his associate, the Duke of Buckingham, went to Stony Stratford, where Richard informed the young King Edward V that there was a plot aiming to deny his role as his protector, and whose perpetrators had already been dealt with. He proceeded to then escort the king to London, when they entered the city on the 4th of May, 1483, displaying the carriage weapons that they had captured from the Earl of Rivers, along with his 2,000-man army. Richard first accommodated the new King Edward and his brother in the bishop's apartments. Then, on the Duke of Buckingham's suggestions, the king was moved to the royal apartments in the Tower of London, where kings customarily awaited and planned for their coronation. They also claimed that this is the safest place for the young boys. I mean, the War of the Roses was still fresh in everyone's minds, and enemies could be anywhere. But it soon turned out that the greatest threat to the young boys was their uncle himself, Richard. Richard declared the marriage between his older brother, the ex-king Edward IV, and the two boys' mother, Elizabeth Woodville, as invalid, because she was a commoner. Then there were even rumours that Edward IV's father, the old Duke of York, wasn't even his father, because he was so much taller than everyone else in his family, a claim that would change the royal succession if true. Anyway, the outcome was that Richard said his two nephews were bastards and could not inherit the throne, which meant that he was in line for the throne. He was the next along in the succession plan. Shortly after, the citizens of London, along with the nobles, clergy, and commoners, came together and drew up a petition asking Richard to assume the throne. Of course, Richard actually forced them to do this, but he gracefully accepted the throne on their behalf on the 26th of June, 1483. And then he was crowned in Westminster Abbey on the 6th of July, 1483. Now, Richard III had already married the Duke of Warwick, aka the Kingmaker's daughter, Anne Neville. Therefore, she was of the correct stock, and they had children together who could inherit the throne. Therefore, the succession line would be in place. The problem was, what is going to happen to these other two princes that were now left in the tower? Well, weeks went by and the princes were seen less and less, and a monk who had seen them every single day eventually woke up one morning and realized he hadn't seen the princes for quite a while. Initially, they thought that the princes had been moved to a different place, but shortly after they realized what actually may have happened. Now, no one actually knew what happened here, but it's assumed that Richard, the now King Richard III, did not want any competition from his young nephews, so he had them suffocated in their beds, being smothered with their pillows while they slept. One thing's for sure, the princes seem to have disappeared. This secured Richard III's fate as being remembered as one of the most evil villains of the period, and he will forever live in infamy thanks to Shakespeare's play Richard III. Nearly 200 years after the disappearance of the two princes, in 1674, labourers were working in the Tower of London when they found a wooden chest hidden beneath a staircase, and inside the chest, of course, there were two skeletons, two boys, one slightly older than the other. The princes' remains had been found, and they were reinterred in Westminster Abbey. What's more is that in 1933, the tomb was reopened, and the remains were confirmed to belong to two young boys. And the death was probably confirmed to suffocation due to a red mark on the facial bones, apparently a common symptom for suffocation deaths. The War of the Roses was a horrifically bloody time in English history, but even during this period, Richard III killing his own brother's sons was a step too far. This kick-started the War of the Roses once more when the Lancastrian house came back for revenge on the killer king, Richard III. Find out what happens next when we end the War of the Roses in the next episode of the series. I really hope that you enjoyed that. Please, please, please go find the donation link down below in the description and help those who actually need it. Please also like, comment, and subscribe. The more you know.